What is a benefit if you can't actually use it? I think we can all agree that when it comes to employee benefits, we want to be providing our employees with benefits they can actually use. Unfortunately, a lot of times employees are struggling to use their benefits because we haven't thoughtfully designed the program to best meet the needs of our employees and give them benefits that actually have a meaningful impact to them. One of the things that you hear me talk about a lot on the podcast is your health insurance program. And one of the reasons for it is because that's one of the biggest line items in your business. That's the really expensive benefit that you provide. So we need to make sure that we're controlling costs, but also delivering great benefits when it comes to our health insurance. But most businesses have other types of benefits that they offer. In today's podcast, we're going to talk about ancillary or worksite benefits that you might be providing to your employees today. Maybe you're not providing them and it's just something you've wanted to explore. So the goal of today's podcast is going to be to educate you on a few of these ancillary and worksite benefits, things that you need to look for and why they might be a good thing to consider in your business this year, or they might be worth considering looking at something different this year to better meet the needs of your employees. So let's get ready for this episode of the podcast. I'm Nick Leese, founder of Next Gen Benefit Solutions and your host of the Next Gen podcast. And I'm pretty excited to have you with me today. We're getting a little bit off the beaten track of health insurance, and we're going to dive into the ancillary side of benefits and help to give you some new ideas and some answers around your ancillary benefits, what you need to be looking for, and how you can deliver that better benefits experience for your employees. Now, one of the most common ancillary benefits that employers utilize is dental coverage. And dental coverage is a great coverage to have. When I am talking to a group that doesn't have any type of ancillary benefit or any benefits at all, dental is one of the number one coverages that I recommend businesses consider. When we look at different surveys and resources about what employees want from their employer, what their number one benefit is, you would be surprised how often dental insurance comes ahead of things like health insurance. And really, when it comes down to it, one of the core reasons is why that is because it's usable. Almost every dental plan out there has at least one, and most of them have 2 free cleanings each and every year. So it's a coverage that you can purchase for your employee, or you can give them ability to go purchase for themselves that they can actually use. They can get that dental cleaning, make sure everything's up to date, and that makes them happy. The other side is that when it comes to more significant dental things like cavities and crowns and stuff like that, we're talking a much lower dollar amount. And so it feels like the dental insurance is much better than the medical insurance because it's paying more of it. So really what it comes down to is that usability factor. Employees feel like they can actually use their dental plan, whereas sometimes with their health insurance plan, especially on high deductibles, they don't feel like they can actually use it because they can't afford to. Now, because it is oftentimes one of the number one requested benefits from surveys, and the fact that employees routinely list it as one of the most favored benefits, that's exactly why you need to be considering having a dental plan. If you don't already have one, you really need to be looking for it. If you do have a dental plan, it's an opportunity to look at how you can make it better. And there's a number of different ways that you can make it better. When I talk to prospects about their dental plan, one of the most common frustrations that I hear is that it doesn't seem like any of our dentists take our plan, or the dentist makes us pay up front and then we get reimbursed. So let's address a couple of the issues that I see with dental plans. Number one is across the country, and specifically here in rural America, you have to make sure that you're designing the dental plan appropriately. So we talk a lot about networks when we're talking about our health insurance. And one of the areas where I am adamant about not using any type of network is a dental policy. And the reason being is that here in rural America, quite frankly, the dentists have more than enough business to keep them busy and provide them the lifestyle that they want. So they have very little incentive or need to join any type of networks. Therefore, they don't. So when you build your dental policy with a network, a lot of times that is going to create some usability issues. It means that either there's going to be dentists that flat out will not accept it, or they will make your employee pay upfront before they receive services and then require them to go get reimbursed on their own. Because of this, you have to take a keen interest in how your dental plan reimburses dental expenses. My favorite thing to do is to use a policy that uses at least a 90% UCR, or usual, customary, and reasonable. Sometimes we can even use a 95% UCR. But what is that, and why does it matter? Well, a UCR essentially takes a survey of all the dentists in a certain geographical location, establishes the median price that is charged, and they reimburse either 90 or 95% of what that average charge is. The good news about that is that dentists seem to be okay with that. I have never seen a dentist turn away a client with a 90 UCR policy, and I also don't see them as often requiring payment up front. Now, the downside is that occasionally you'll find a dentist that's going to balance bill, but at that point in time, I always say that that's a little bit on the employee. If they're okay with the fact that their dentist is not accepting the payment we give them as payment in full and they're going to balance bill them, they do have the choice to go to a different dentist, but a lot of times it's a fairly insignificant amount of money. You know, we're talking $10 or $15, $20 a lot of times if they're going to be balance billed. So it's not an amount that's breaking your employee. And again, they do have that choice that if that's how their current dentist operates, they're welcome to go somewhere else, somewhere where they're not going to be balance billed, where that is going to be accepted as payment in full. Now, the other thing that you need to look for, and this kind of merges into it, is reimbursement type policies. Really ideally what we want for most employees is we want a policy to where they can go to the dentist can file a claim, and the insurance carrier is going to pay that claim. But there are some dental policies out there. A lot of them are more of your work site type policies. If you think like Aflac, Colonial, to where your employee's going to go to the dentist, they're going to seek services, they're going to pay those, and then they're going to submit for reimbursement after. These aren't bad policies. It's not necessarily a deal breaker, but one of the issues that I see with it is that a lot of times our employees don't have extra money. So they're avoiding going and using the dental policy because they can't afford to pay up front and wait to get reimbursed. So that's just a couple of things to look at when you're considering your dental policy. But here's my bonus tip when it comes to dental. Dental, if you are an employer of at least 25, I would say maybe closer to 50, dental is one of those areas where you can dip your toes into self-funding. It's a very low risk and very low barrier to entry to self-fund your dental program. At the end of the day, the carriers are oftentimes projecting like a 60% loss ratio on your dental policy. So that means that they're stacking those odds in pretty good favor for them, and that it's a fairly low risk thing. That's why we see dental rates continue to be pretty darn competitive and, quite frankly, affordable for most people. So if you're somebody that's maybe been considering self-funding your medical plan, but you're a little bit nervous because you're not sure how it's going to work, self-funding your dental can be a great way to kind of dip your toes in the water and learn a little bit more about what self-funding is all about. Now let's go to the next coverage, and this is another one that is highly requested by employees, and that is vision insurance. Now, a lot of this comes down to the same thing with dental insurance, so we'll go a little faster through this one. It comes down to usability. People can go use their vision insurance. A lot of times there's going to be a fairly significant frame allowance and lens allowance. A lot of times the copay for just a checkup is going to be very, very minimal. Usually the highest is about $15. So dental insurance is a great opportunity for you to give your employees a benefit that, again, they feel like they can really use. And it's one of those ones that people want. So as you're looking at making your business more competitive and being able to attract and retain those employees that you want, vision is one of those ones that really a lot of people have come to expect an employer to offer. One of the other really good things about a vision policy that, I think is good is believe it or not, there's a lot of different health concerns that can actually be detected through the eyes. So having a vision policy, really encouraging people to go get those routine exams. Obviously, it helps them make sure that they're taken care of from a vision standpoint, but it also might, at certain times, identify something else going on inside your employee and allow them to engage with the healthcare system on something not related directly to their vision insurance. It might be that they've detected that the person has high blood pressure or diabetes. A lot of these things are showing up inside the eye and can be seen in an eye exam. So it's almost a little bit of a preventative screening and one that the employees actually enjoy going and doing. Now, the main thing I would say to look for when evaluating your dental options is, vision options. With vision, networks are okay. You have to be careful. Unfortunately, I would say the gold standard of a vision policy is going to be a VSP network. There's iMed and a couple of other different ones out there. Again, here in rural America, those work okay. But really what we want to do is we want to make sure that people have a robust options when it comes to vision insurance. So VSP is going to be probably the most robust way that you can go and ensure that your employees can access almost any eye doctor out there with a VSP plan. But one thing we want to kind of stay away from, at least in my opinion, is that there's some narrower networks out there that maybe require employees to only use Walmart, which, not knocking Walmart's optical department, but when it comes to vision, this isn't a huge line item. One of the things that we need to focus on is that usability. So let's make sure that we're using a network that really gives your employees a freedom of choice and is not siloing them into one significant area. The other side is that from a quality standpoint, a lot of eye doctors are going to be really good. So it's not as critical. We're not doing a surgery. So that, those are just a couple of things to think about. Now, here's the bonus on vision, / something to look out for. So a lot of times I get asked, does this have vision correction coverage? So laser surgery. The answer is very, very few policies are going to have any coverage for laser correction surgery. However, it's becoming more and more prominent that they will have a discount program for things like laser correction surgery. So one of the things that you can look for is to see what does that discount look like. How broad is the discount? Does it allow them to go anywhere? Does it only allow them to go to certain places for vision correction surgery? And how much is that discount? So that varies. I've seen as low as 10%. I've seen as high as 50%. So again, a lot of times there's not actual coverage for it, but there is a discount program. So, if it's not going to cost any more money, a lot of times it's nice to see if you can get a higher level of discount program for laser correction surgery for those people that might be interested in it. So now we're going to talk about the third coverage. And, these first three are what I like to call a core package. This is a package that I think a lot of employers really should be focusing on having and making sure that they're providing to their employees. And this third one is life insurance. Let's face it, the average employee has less than $1,000 in savings. Couple that with the fact that the average cost of a funeral continues to rise. Right now, you would have a big challenge of being able to pay for a funeral, a very basic funeral, for less than $10,000. It can be done, but it's a challenge. And I think that's only going to continue to be a bigger challenge for our employees. Now, statistically, life insurance policies in an employer setting don't get used very often. If we look at individual term life policies, it is a very, very small percentage of those policies that actually ever trigger a benefit. It's probably even lesser so with employer policies. But an example I'll give right now that has been pretty recent is that there was a situation where somebody died on a group, and the family was left asking questions. And the main question was, how do we pay to take care of our loved one? At the end of the day, a term life policy or any type of employer-sponsored life insurance program is incredibly inexpensive. We're talking a couple of dollars a month per employee. So even if you have 100 employees, we're talking about a couple $100 bills to make sure that your employees have some protection. Now, what I always encourage is people to look at least a $15,000 benefit, $15,000 to $25,000 benefit is kind of being the baseline. Just have that. And part of the reason for that is that, $15,000 to $25,000 in the event that your employee passes away, or maybe one of their loved ones passes away, it is going to give them enough money to make sure that they can take care of and bury their loved one, but also give them a little bit of extra cash to maybe take care of a few things. Maybe it's simply, having a little bit of cash so they can take a vacation and enjoy some time with their loved ones. Maybe it's paying off some debt. Maybe it's getting ahead on their bills. We all too often take for granted how much $15,000 to $25,000 can do for an employee. Again, most of our employees don't have much in savings. So when one of these life events comes, it's very traumatic, and having a little bit of life insurance can make all the difference. Now, as a business grows, depending on the type of business that you are, the level of talent that you're hiring, you may have to consider more. It's not uncommon to see people doing a one-time salary, which I think is a great thing. As you get into your more technical jobs, a lot of times you're seeing upwards to 2-time salary. And again, this is just a really inexpensive way for you to take a stronger interest in your employees and really helping them to make sure that they have that financial security that they really, quite frankly, are craving. Now, some of the things that you need to consider are, what is the benefit? Obviously, how much, what that is, how much that costs per unit of life insurance, but also look at things like portability. A lot of times employees are not going out and purchasing a life insurance policy on their own. So the life insurance that they have, the only life insurance that they have, is likely going to come from you. So having things like portability, so if your employee does retire or, chooses to go work somewhere else or moves and has to get a new job, making sure that it has that portability measure in there is a great option. So if your employee needs to, they can take that policy with them. Now, when they port that, you're no longer paying for it. They have to pay all the premiums for it, but it's a nice little perk inside some life insurance policies that I think is worth considering. Now, here's the bonus tip when it comes to life insurance. While a pretty standard term life policy is the common or the most traditional way to do an employer-sponsored program, we do have some options that allow you to do other types of life insurance policies. So maybe you want to offer a whole life type policy for your employees. I think this is a great option, especially for those longer term employees, because this is one of those ones that they can take with them. While they don't build significant cash value, after a 20 or 30 year career working for you, getting to port that whole life policy is going to give them, a little bit of a cash advantage. Or maybe it's just one of those things that they want to continue to pay for that and take that into retirement. something that a lot of the term options don't have. The term options will allow them to port them, but at a certain age, they either decrease the benefits significantly or they terminate the policy altogether. With a whole life option, you allow your employees to be able to take that with them, take it into retirement, and have that little bit of security. Some of the other options that we have available is a return of premium. Return of premium is a really great opportunity. A lot of these are like a 20-year deal. So it's great. If somebody comes to work for you at 25 years old, they can buy this policy, or you can buy this policy for them. And then at 45, 55, 65, depending on the program that you choose, they're going to have the option to either extend their coverage, or maybe it's to take that cash value. So take somebody that's 65 years old, they're retiring, they've got this term policy with a return of premium rider on it. They're going to retire and they're going to get a check in the mail. And again, a lot of times this isn't, life-changing money. We're not talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, but we're talking $5, $10, $15, $20,000 that your employees get to have. And it's a great opportunity to where, they didn't use that money, they're returning that premium back to your employees. So there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of cut that pie. But again, it's really just doing your due diligence and making sure that you're looking at all the different options. So our fourth coverage, and this is another one that I think is a pretty critical coverage, is disability coverage. Now, really, there's two types of disability coverage. There's short-term disability coverage and there's long-term disability coverage. And we'll dive into a little bit of both of them. So why should we offer this? And again, it comes back to most of the time your employees are not financially secure. They don't have the savings to weather a significant disability event. Most people can't afford to miss a couple of days of work. So that's where something like a short-term disability policy can be really good. They tend to be a little bit more expensive, but if you employ a lot of younger ladies, a lot of younger females, a short-term disability policy with a maternity rider on it can be a great opportunity for your employees. And one of the things that employees love is they love seeing their employer take a vested interest outside of their work life. So having something that supports somebody being able to grow their family and not endure a financial hardship to do so, that brings a lot of satisfaction and appreciation to you as an employer. The other side is long-term disability. 1 in 4 people are going to experience some type of disability. And that's way higher instance than things like life insurance. So it's way more likely that one of your employees is going to trigger a disability policy than they will a life insurance policy. So this is a real world thing that can happen. And a lot of times when we think about disability, we think, somebody got in an accident and they're paralyzed or, something else. But cancer can be a disability. If somebody is undergoing treatment for, a year or 2 years for cancer, which is not uncommon, they may not be able to work, or they may not be able to work full time. And so they're out there trying to get themselves healthy again, but they don't have a paycheck. So at the end of the day, we need to help our employees make sure that they have a paycheck, and disability insurance is a great way to do that. Now, here's a couple of things that you need to look for. One is you need to look at waiting periods. What does that elimination or waiting period look like? A waiting period on a disability policy is, effectively the deductible. So, when we're talking about employees on a short-term disability policy, most employers and most employees don't have, 14 days of coverage. So maybe you need to look at a shorter duration elimination. Maybe it's a 7-day or an 8-day elimination period versus something like a 14-day. When we're talking about disability policies, while there's quite a bit of savings by having a 180-day elimination period, a lot of times employees can't make it to 180 days before they're in a really bad financial position. So even though it's a little bit more expensive, things like a 90-day waiting period may be more appropriate for your employee base. Looking at things like how they identify the occupation. So there's things like own occupation, which means that if you can't do what you're doing today, you will receive a benefit. Now, there's another definition, which is any occupation. So that means if your employee can no longer function in the job role that they were doing for you, but they can get a job somewhere else. Maybe it's going from a manufacturing setting to a cubicle type setting. They can do that. So even though they're not skilled at that, maybe it's not something that they enjoy. Maybe it's not what they want to do with their lives or dreamt of their life. With any occupation policy, they're required to go get that job, or else it won't pay any type of benefit. So those are just a couple of things to look at. When it comes to disability, you really have to have a keen eye and make sure that you have good guidance on what you're doing, because definitions inside of a disability policy are a huge deal, and you need to make sure you're paying attention to them. Now, the bonus tip for disability is looking at a program that has a strong return to work program. Now, we want people to use our disability policy, and we want them to get back to 100% before they return to work. We don't want to rush somebody and risk having them get re-injured or have to take disability again, further extending the time that they're out of your business. So having a program that has a strong emphasis on return to work, but a very good focus on that return to work and how we can do that responsibly is a really big thing and something that you should be looking for. Now, the final coverage, I'm actually lumping 3 coverages together because I think they have enough in common that it only makes sense to do that. And a lot of times these are considered what your worksite coverages. A lot of times these are in a voluntary program. Employers aren't necessarily paying the premium for them. A lot of times these are a benefit that your employees are having to pay for out of their own pocket. But you as an employer still need to make sure that you're doing your due diligence and helping to build programs that are good for your employees. So this is going to be your accident, your critical illness, and your hospital indemnity. Now, candidly, I have at times had a pretty negative outlook on these programs because a lot of times I felt like they were taking premium from your employees and providing very little value. One of the things that we've done to better support employers is that we've built in some different ways that we can help your employees better use their benefits, and we'll get to that in a minute. But why should you provide these benefits to your employees or provide them the option to purchase these benefits? And really, this comes down to peace of mind. A lot of times, the thought of a cancer diagnosis, the thought of a heart attack, the thought of a child, breaking a leg creates a lot of uncertainty for parents. And you employ a lot of parents. And so you need to make sure that you're at least offering the opportunity for these people to have access to these coverages, even if you're not paying for them, to really help bring that peace of mind. And, why is this a good idea? Well, I think it comes down to, again, it's showing that you're listening as an employer. It's showing that you're taking a vested interest. Even if you're not contributing, it's helping your employees access some of these things that give them that peace of mind, that helps build that appreciation for you as an employer. Now, what do you need to be looking for in these? Robust is probably the biggest word, especially when it comes to things like accident policies, but it also bleeds over into critical illness and hospital indemnity. Find a program that has robust coverage. So specifically with accident plans is that, a lot of times we see accident plans come in one flavor or another. It's either chocolate or vanilla. The vanilla policies, they're only going to cover a handful of different things that can happen. And I tend to think that they're bigger things. We're talking major fractures, major medical events. And they are paying a higher limit on those things when they do happen. But the fact of the matter is that those things are less likely to happen. It's much more likely for somebody to need an x-ray or to go get a cast or to have some minor procedures done. So that's where we kind of get to that chocolate policy is, the chocolate policy is going to have a much wider array of things that they cover. I mean, there's one of the carriers out there that they actually cover a gunshot wound. Now, I'm hoping that never happens, but it's something that they cover. And they don't pay a massive benefit for it. But, unfortunately, things like that do happen. And while a gunshot is not super common, a simple x-ray because somebody may have broken a bone is very common. So making sure that the policy is applicable to real life. Making sure that it doesn't require a massive problem to happen before it triggers a benefit, a lot of times can be a good idea. Now, one of the other things to look for is the portability on these, seeing if they do have that ability for your employees to take it with them if they leave your employment. That's something that a lot of people like. You also need to look at, what are the guarantees? How long are the premiums guaranteed? Is the cost ever going to go up? A lot of these different things. Now, here's my bonus tip when it comes to these worksite programs. Again, return of premium. A lot of times people aren't using these programs. They just don't have the situations arise to where they need them. So something like a critical illness program, if somebody retires from your place, they don't see a reason to port it. Is there a way to get some of that premium back for them? Is there a return of premium feature? So to wrap up today's podcast on ancillary and worksite benefits, just going to give you a little insight into some of the things that we do to help your employees better use these benefits. So one of our solutions allows us to be more proactive. So we're actually going to look at a claims file. If somebody has an accident plan and we see that their child was in the emergency room for a broken bone, we're actually going to reach out to them and remind them to file a claim against their accident policy. A lot of these worksite programs offer a small benefit. Maybe it's $50 for doing a wellness visit. We're going to look at their claims feed. When we see that wellness visit code come through, we're reaching out to your employees. We're helping them remember that they have these policies and make sure that they're maximizing the use of these policies. Again, why buy it if you're not going to be able to use it? Some of the other stuff that we do is with our ancillary program, we bring a lot of technology to your fingertips. We help you better educate your employees through a number of different channels, all through leveraging technology and really creating a better experience for your employees, a better user experience. And again, just helping them to maximize the amount of money that they're spending on these and to really get the maximal value out of these programs. So at the end of the day, ancillary benefits, worksite benefits can be a really great addition to your program. If you're already offering them, taking a look at those and seeing if there's maybe ways that you can improve the coverages without increasing the cost or lower the cost and get the same coverage. Those are some things that you need to be looking at, and that's what we help our clients and our prospects do on a day in and day out basis. So hope you learned something from this podcast, got a little bit off the beaten path of health insurance, but I thought it would be a nice refresher for you. I hope you learned something. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll talk to you again next week.